Dats. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
Let's see, what do we have here? Win, 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 buy, win, 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 win. 16-0, man.
Isn't that how we all feel as football fans? The media also tends to buy into the hype of the schedules. But welcome in to another Been There, Done That podcast. That is John Gruden, courtesy Frank Caliendo. I am Mike Nabors, and I'm going to bring in my partners, our producer Justin Thomas, and my co-host Scott Shanle. Shanle, the NFL, you can say what you want about this league, but we're approaching mid-May, and the lead story, I know it's quarantine, no sports right now, but even if the NBA was going on, even if they were playing Major League Baseball, the schedule would still be the big story anyway.
No doubt about it. I think a lot of fans always look forward to the schedule release. You look at, you have an idea of who you're playing home and away, but it's nice to see how that schedule breaks down, the cold weather games if you're a dome team, things like that. And it's always fun for fans to start to compare. And then the other thing fans like to see is, what does the NFL think of their own individual team? How many primetime games did you get? Did people get to see your team? And some teams are always happier than others when that comes out.
Justin Thomas, we're all going to go game by game. I make fun of people that do that, but you know what? It's fun when you host a podcast and you can do it. And I know fans out there, you love doing it too. I mean, we already have mock drafts for the 2021 NFL draft. We can break down the Saints schedule, which we're going to do. Justin, are you ready for that momentarily?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am.
Okay, well, good stuff. We'll get to that in just a bit. Shanle, you talk about primetime games. I live in Tampa, but I've covered the Saints for the last 15 years. And the Bucs have 5 primetime games. And it's not because of the Bucs, it's because of 2 words, Tom and Brady. But it's still 5 primetime games. But the excitement they're feeling in Tampa, Saints fans have felt that excitement for a long time. And we've seen the progression from 2006, a little more primetime games after you guys made the NFC Championship game, to now we're used to the Saints being in at least a handful of primetime games. But I bring up the Bucs fan base for a little perspective, because the Bucs fan base is like the Who Dat Nation before Breeze and Peyton. No primetime games. You're looking forward to the draft, who's going to be the top pick, maybe a coaching change. So when I see the buzz in Tampa having all these primetime games they haven't had for years, I think that brings a little perspective in to how well the Saints have been as a franchise for so long, having so many primetime games, Shanle.
Yeah, and I think the status was earned a little differently for the Saints. We had to win in 2006, and then 2007 and 2008 we were a 500 team, and then you win the Super Bowl. So you earn it. You earn those primetime games through consistency, whereas Tom Brady earned those primetime games for Tampa Bay based on what he did in New England. So, you're not getting a 30-year-old Tom Brady. Some of this could be short-lived, but nonetheless, it's exciting for fan bases to get to see their team put in the spotlight, to have high expectations. And it goes back to the old saying, you either have hope or despair. Well, Tom Brady brought tons of hope to that team. The coaches, the locker room will have hope, and now the fan base. So I think when you look at their schedule outside of going to New Orleans week 1, I think the league did them a great favor setting up a lot of their tough games at home. But yeah, I think there's obvious reasons for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan base to be excited, and every fan base deserves that opportunity to have hope.
And Saints fans, please, give us your feedback on what you think the Saints record is going to be. We're going to do a poll, and we're going to give you some options here. But I'm excited about this kind of mock schedule prediction, whatever you want to call it, we're going to have in just a second. Okay, NFL full steam ahead, Shanle. We've talked about that. I know you didn't like the way the CBA went down. We've talked about that in past podcasts. But free agency, full steam ahead. NFL draft, full steam ahead. Schedule, full steam ahead. They have a preseason schedule out. I mean, is there any doubt that the NFL is going to start on time in your eyes, or how do you feel about that right now?
I don't know. I go back and forth. I think when I look at the NFL, I think they are going to push it to run everything business as normal. Um, I was shocked that they put out a normal preseason schedule. I think if there was any year to try out a shortened preseason, this is obviously the year. 1 or 2 games. That's what all fans have been hoping for. If you're thinking you're not going to have fans sitting in week one for a regular season game, why even throw together 4 meaningless preseason games? So I was shocked by that, but I could definitely see them continue to see what the trend is in terms of people being infected. If it continues to rise, season gets pushed back maybe to October. If they start to see this thing dip, maybe they start the regular season on time. But I think there's got to be a way to cut down this preseason, especially this year.
Shanley, when you look at the schedule, the bye week, it's not halfway through the season, but you have, what is it, 5 games under your belt. A lot of primetime games early. It's pretty crazy how many, 2 of their first 3, 4 of their first 8, then the second half of the season, no primetime games. You're never going to have a perfect schedule, but what stands out about the schedule, I think, all things considered, they play a lot of teams early in the schedule, and this is dangerous to do in May. I get it, who didn't have great seasons last year, didn't have winning seasons last year too. So, what stands out about the schedule for you?
Well, this is the first time in a couple of years that I really like the schedule. And, I've been safe with saying the Saints the last few years. There's always been tough stretches of the schedule. I think this year there's still a tough stretch later in the year. But I think this schedule is set up for a fast start, which we know is important under Coach Payton. And the Saints team has done great things when they get off to a fast start. And I love the fact that you start the season with the most hyped team in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady, but you get them at home. You get a chance to make an early showing, get off to a fast start, give your team some confidence. But I think the schedule's set up for a fast start.
According to my buddy Doug Mouton at WWL, I saw this on Twitter. The Saints' first 8 opponents were a combined 17 games under 500 last year. I know that's dangerous with the NFL. Green Bay was 10 games over, so the other 7 were 42, 69, and 1. But that's dangerous, isn't it, Shanley? With the ways the NFL teams can turn things around in one year.
Yes, it is because every year, everybody thinks they have a chance to win the Super Bowl, and then by week 8, you really know who realistically has a chance, and that's the way the NFL is. That's the way they want it to be because of free agency, the draft. It brings hope to every single team every year. But I think the thing that gives the Saints a huge advantage over these teams is when you look at what you have to do this year is look at the roster, look at the coaching staffs. Who has the least amount of turnover? This Saints team, pretty much the exact team is coming back with the exact same coaching staff. No coordinators were lost. It is going to be a tremendous advantage for teams that are able to do that. And the Saints, I think, are at the top of the NFL when you look at the limited amount of turnover they've had from last year to this year.
Plus, Emmanuel Sanders greater than Tom Brady. You guys can laugh at me. We'll see how it works down the road. I'm going to stick by that. All right, before we get to our mock schedule prediction, I need to get a better title for that thing, but we're going to go game by game with the Saints schedule. Shanley, as a player, when the schedule comes out, you guys text each other. You get with, obviously your family. You plan things. I mean, what's the first reaction when you get, as a player, when you see a schedule come out?
I'm gonna tell you this, Mike. Whenever I get the schedule, I've been removed from the game long enough that I still shouldn't do this. But when I get the schedule, I look at it through the player's eyes. I look at it like I still have to suit up and I still have to play. The first thing I look
Love it.
at from being a dome team is I look at November, December. Where am I going to go where it's possibly negative 10 degrees, where it's snowing? Those are the games you don't want to play in, especially the older you get, because your body hurts a lot worse in cold weather. I'll tell you that right now. Big reason why I didn't go back to the Chiefs in 2011 when I re-signed with the Saints. I didn't want to play in that cold weather. So that's the first thing I look at. And I don't really remember as players, we didn't really text or talk about the schedule a whole lot because we all understand on any given Sunday you can be beat. You can't take anybody lightly. So as a fan now, I can sit here and I can say win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And I kind of did that as a player, but not as much because you have to take everybody serious every single week or you will be beat if you don't have that mindset.
But as an ex-player and a current broadcaster, the first text I saw from you, they're playing on Christmas because you're a
Oh
father
yeah.
too, and that's tough.
Oh, there's tons of players already. I'm sure that was the number one contention they had with this schedule being released. Nobody wants to play on Christmas, and it's a tough draw because it's on a Friday. I don't quite know why they put this game on Christmas against the Minnesota Vikings. Normally, when I think of Christmas Day, I think of NBA. That's always kind of been their day. But yeah, Christmas is a tough sell for anybody. Even if you're a fan, you want to stay at home, open presents, do that thing. Maybe some people will find an easy Christmas gift. You get to go to a Saints game and have some tickets. But yeah, that's a tough sell when you put your team on Christmas.
I thought of the Breeze Boys and Rylan, their daughter. That's going to be a different setup for Christmas. Maybe Santa's going to have to make some different arrangements, I guess, over there.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna open presents really, 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 really early at the team hotel, and then Dad's got to go play a football game.
Exactly. All right. Well, listen. Let's check out the schedule because it's an interesting one, and there's so many marquee games in the NFC South now. With Bridgewater obviously being in Carolina, but even more importantly, Tom Brady being in Tampa. Justin, are you ready? Because we're going to go Justin, Shanle, and me, and we'll kind of the same rotation we have for more likely, and we'll do that rotation later on. But Justin, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Shanle, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Okay, week number 1. Okay, week 1, the NFL's not messing around. I thought Brady and Breeze or Breeze and Brady would be 2 primetime games, but no, out of the chute though, the first game of the year in the Superdome, you have Drew Brees against Tom Brady. You have the Saints against the Bucks. Justin Thomas, what do you think?
There's no doubt in my mind this Bucks team is going to be better. I don't think that it's going to manifest early enough. So the fact that it's in the dome and the team probably won't be or have enough chemistry with Brady, I'm going with Saints over Tampa.
All right. 1-0. Shanle, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going with the Saints beating Tampa Bay. I love the fact they get Tampa Bay early on. And just a reminder, a lot of my win-loss predictions going through the schedule are because the Saints have the chemistry coming back. A lot of these teams with roster changes, quarterback changes, coaching changes, they're not afforded that luxury. So I think the Saints are going to have a lot of W's because of that. But I'm going Saints over Tampa Bay week 1.
And also, if you're listening to this podcast, say in October or September or November, we didn't know about the injuries either. We didn't know about transactions. It's all in fun, Who Dat Nation, Saints fans, NFL fans. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I think the NFL did the Saints a big favor on 2 fronts. A, this game is not in Tampa. And B, like Justin said, Tom Brady doesn't have, that time to get used to Bruce Arians' offense. And I know he's Tom Brady, but still he's somewhat of a human being in some regard as a quarterback, and he's older and he's got to get used to these guys. And you know what? I don't know what kind of preseason we're going to have, and I think that helps if you're a veteran quarterback, but you also got to get used to the system. So all 3 of us say 1-0. Okay, week number 2, they go to Vegas, baby. Primetime game, first ever game for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's going to take a while to kind of let that sink in a little bit. But Justin Thomas, what do you think of that game?
I think that's a win for the Saints as well. I think it'll probably be a close game. I could see that happening, but yeah, I have the Saints winning that one.
Okay, 2-0 for Justin. Shanle, what do you think?
I'm going Saints W. I think I agree with Justin. It's going to be a tougher game under other circumstances because it's going to be the home opener for Vegas. There's going to be a lot of excitement. Coach Payton, I'm going to need you to make curfew a little bit earlier, though, for these guys. Everybody wants to play in Vegas. Everybody wants to play the Raiders on the road. I need an earlier curfew, though, for the guys. They don't want to hear that, but I'm going to go Saints.
Okay, I'm going first loss of the year, guys, for the reason that I think the NFL did the Saints a favor. I think if the Saints opened up in Tampa against the Bucks, that crowd would be so jacked. And I don't know what Gronk is going to do in Tampa, but I think having Gronk, having Brady, having that energy, that would have been an electric opener. But thank goodness for the Saints, that game is in New Orleans. But there's something about that first game in Vegas. I don't know what it is. I just feel like the Raiders are going to be up for that game, and they're going to play a little above what they are as a football team. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think they lose that game on Monday night. All right, week number 3, Green Bay Packers, the primetime Saints, back-to-back weeks, Sunday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers against Drew Brees. And Justin, the last couple times they played the Packers, the last time they didn't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers is around for this game. It's only going to be week 3. Odds are he will be. But what do you think about Saints-Packers in week 3?
This one is still a toss-up. I mean, when the schedule came out and I saw it, and even now when you wanted to go through wins and losses, I don't know. I can see Rodgers being typical Rodgers and winning, but Packers also have a lot of issues, especially at wide receiver. I'm gonna give the edge to the Saints, I think. But
Oh,
I would not be surprised if it's another close game.
thought you were going to pull the trigger on the loss there. Okay, you're 3-0 right now. Shanley, you're 2-0. Are they going to be 3-0 after week 3?
They are going to be 3-0. I'm going with the Saints over the Packers. The Packers were one of the most overhyped teams last year, won a lot of close games. Credit to them, but they still have tremendous issues in their offensive line. Their lines are not near as good as the Saints. They didn't address their weapons. I think the Saints will be able to lock their weapons down man to man, bring a lot of pressure. Even though Aaron Rodgers still is an elite player, but I like the Saints because of the matchups.
Okay, I like the Saints as well. The Packers don't scare me in the Superdome. If that game was on the road, I may predict a loss, even though I agree with Shanley. I think it's Aaron Rodgers and everybody else. They get a lot of credit, maybe more so than they deserve because they have such an elite quarterback. And, I saw a stat since Aaron Rodgers was drafted, Shanley, that the Packers, I think, have either not drafted a skill player in the first round or maybe one. Aaron Rodgers, you can say what you want about the guy, what an egomaniac he is, but he deserves to be upset in a lot of ways. I mean, that's just a ridiculous stat in so many ways.
He's thrown one touchdown to a first round draft pick in his entire career. And that's Mercedes Lewis. That's kind of a washed up player
Wow.
who's not in his prime at all. And you're right. That stat alone tells you I don't know what this franchise has done since Aaron Rodgers has been the starting quarterback, but how you have not given him more help on the offensive side of the ball is beyond me.
Shanley says, Neighbors, I'll see your Packers stat and I'll raise you a better stat about Aaron Rodgers as we move forward here. All right, this may be one of the easy ones on the surface, but with you guys, I never am quite sure with your answers. But week number 4 at the Detroit Lions. What do you think, Justin?
I could see this either being a shootout or a total crushing by the Saints. No matter what, I'd pick the Saints to win.
Okay. 4-0 for Justin Thomas. Shanley, the Saints going 4-0 after week 4 here.
They are. I like them going on the road to Detroit. Detroit's kind of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get. They are trying to become the Detroit Patriots with all their acquisitions of former Patriots players, coaches, but I just don't think from top to bottom they have enough talent to beat the Saints.
Well, I would look like a genius. A short week, you're going to Detroit, trap game written all over this one, but no, it's Detroit. It's not Baltimore. It's not Seattle. It's Detroit. So they win that game and they improve in my eyes 3-1, still undefeated with Shanley and Justin so far. Okay, back home, another primetime game Monday night against the Los Angeles Chargers. Drew Brees has never lost to the San Diego Chargers or the Los Angeles Chargers. So, Justin Thomas, what's going to happen on Monday night in the Superdome, October 12th? We're thinking, we'll see how the season plays out, but right now it's October 12th against the LA Chargers.
This is interesting. This team is super talented. To me, the only question mark is the QB. And I think that makes a difference in this game. I think the Saints pull off probably a lower scoring game, but I think the Saints win.
All right, you have them 5-0. Shanley, will the Saints be 5-0?
Saints will be 5-0, and I agree with Justin. The quarterback question mark for the Chargers going on the road in a hostile environment in prime time. They are not going to beat the Saints. The one question I have about this game is how the hell did the league think putting the Chargers Monday Night Football against the Saints this early was a good idea? Why would you not put the Chiefs? Why would you not flip the Chiefs and
Yeah.
Chargers? Can you imagine that draw on Monday Night Football with the Chiefs and the Saints at the Superdome? I don't know. I question that move on their scheduling
Yeah,
part.
because Shannon, we're kind of over the Drew Brees Chargers thing, aren't we? And Rivers isn't even playing there
Absolutely.
anymore.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. You're overthinking yourselves, Goodell. Maybe they just had that leftover game, and they're like, well, instead of the Bears, let's give them the Chargers. Who knows what goes on with those guys in the NFL offices? Okay, the bye week is next. You guys thinking they go right into the bye week undefeated, and then after the bye week, they're home, and Teddy Bridgewater comes to town. Carolina Panthers, baby. Justin, do they stay undefeated? 6-0.
I want to say Sean Payton's record after the bye is pretty good. I also think the Panthers are probably the worst team in the division. So I'm going to go with a win and them going 6-0 after the bye.
And you're right, and Shanley knows this too. Ever since he had that powwow with Andy Reid on how to handle things after the bye week, they have been better. They weren't good early, as Shanley remembers those days too. But Scott Shanley, Is it going to be a good after the bye week game for the Saints?
It will be. And again, I love the schedule, how it broke down. Getting Carolina at home. I don't know what Matt Rule, the new head coach, is going to bring to this team. Again, they're going to have a shortened off season. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be more of a game manager, which he is perfectly fine doing that. They're going to ride Christian McCaffrey. But again, playing at the Superdome, I just think is advantage Saints.
Yeah, I don't think Carolina's any good. I think I like the new coach. I like the new quarterback. I love McCaffrey. They got a lot of holes in this team, too many, and especially being at home, the Saints win this game. All right,
And no
here's another.
Luke Kuechly, who retired. I mean, that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah, that's what, he's so many holes for this team. And oh, by the way, Cam Newton still doesn't have a home either, which is just weird to me. But we'll see what happens. Also, I wonder where Cam Newton will be October 25th. That'll be interesting, won't it? I wonder if he'll be anywhere. We'll see.
He'll be on a roster, I'm sure. I think he'll be on a team. It's a matter of will he accept a backup role and maybe emerge as a starter.
Jacksonville Jaguars. What a great story with Cam Newton stepping in for Gardner Minshew. It's unbelievable in Jacksonville. All right, guys.
Didn't Jacksonville just sign somebody? They signed Mike Glennon. That's who I saw they signed this morning. That's Glennon and Minshew.
Like I said,
good luck.
Cam Newton, a great story in Jacksonville. That's like you last week with Alex Smith, and I said, well, and then you're like I said, I'm still looking for an Urban Meyer quarterback working on in the NFL. All right. Here's another break for the Saints. Chicago, November 1st. Sure beat Chicago December 1st or mid-December. They go to Chicago. Will it be Mitchell Trubisky? Will it be Nick Foles? What do you think? Bears in November. Justin Thomas, you have the Saints 6-0 going into Chicago.
Chicago's a tough place to play, but I just don't know what they're doing with all their decisions the offseason. I kind of think the team's a mess. And so in that regard, I'm going to pick Saints to win.
Justin Thomas has the Saints 7-0. But does Scott Shanle? What do you think, Shanle?
I do. This is going to be a tough game because even though it's November 1st, there could still be snow on the ground. It's going to be windy. It could be cold. But I'm not sold on Nick Foles, not sold on the quarterback situation Chicago has going on. I do think they have some talented pieces on defense, so it could be one of those grinded out type games. But again, I just think the Saints have a better roster.
This is fun. I feel like Trey Wingo, minus a lot of the sarcasm, hosting this show right here. I picked this game too. I think the Saints win this game. The Bears to me are like Carolina, but they have a little more talent. Not as many holes, but they still have a lot of holes in their quarterback situation. I like Ryan Pace, the former Saints executive. Boy, you got to feel for him moving forward here in his job security if it doesn't work out this season. All right, this is when it gets interesting. All right, I'm doing my math here. You guys have them 7-0. Then here's a pivotal game. They go to Tampa Bay, to Raymond James Stadium, the rematch with Brady and Breeze and Brady. Justin Thomas, do they keep winning here?
So I think by this point, the chemistry between Brady and all his offense, I think, is much improved. The team's much improved. I also think the Saints get caught looking ahead to the next game against the 49ers. I think this is going to be their first loss of the year.
See, I think they get caught looking ahead if Jameis is the quarterback. But if Tom Brady's the quarterback, I don't think they're looking ahead. That's just my opinion. Shanle, what do you think? Is this the first loss? Did you say loss, Justin?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Shanle?
This one's a tough one because I agree with Justin. I think by then, Tom Brady, and their defense is pretty good. Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator. I think they have time to gel and possibly beat the Saints, but I'm going to go Saints because the game's in prime time. And the Saints, for some reason, they are going to be ready to play this game. Coach Payton's going to have them ready to play under the lights, which is a rare thing for Saints in Tampa. I'm going to go Saints with a W.
Nostra Shanle has them 8-0 halfway through the season. My goodness. I got to say lost in this game, and I thought they would split and a little home and home, but I really like the way the schedule started. Obviously, the Saints get the Bucs at home, but boy, if the Saints sweep the Bucs this year with all the hype, I can't imagine the ramifications moving forward. I mean, the Bucs fans are so excited about all this hype with Tom Brady, 5 primetime games, Gronk. If they can't beat the Saints this year, they got to be wondering, are we ever going to beat these guys? So I think they're going to win that game. So I think the Saints have 2 losses at this point. Shanle has them undefeated. Justin Thomas has them 7-1. All right, we proceed to the second half of the year. I think this podcast is going very smoothly, guys. No long-winded answers. We're in and out of these games. We go San Francisco 49ers. No primetime game second half unless we see some flexing going on, which we may. San Francisco 49ers, this was a classic game last year at home. What's going to happen this time around, Justin Thomas?
Man, it seems like every time the Saints play this team, it's always a tough win or loss. I just think San Francisco is still a really good team. Yeah, they lost some players, but they're very well coached. I think it's going to be a second loss in a row for the Saints.
Wow, back-to-back losses. Shanle, what are you feeling?
Yeah, I have in my head an idea of where the Saints are going to finish record-wise at the end of the season. So I'm going to kind of hedge my bet here because I have the Saints undefeated so far, and I'm going to go with the 49ers winning in the Superdome again. And the only reason I'm going to say that is because there's certain types of teams that I feel can only beat the Saints team, and that's a team that has a tremendous amount of skill in on the line of scrimmage. And I think the 49ers have a really good O-line, and I think they have a tremendous defensive line, and that's why they're going to give the Saints trouble. And it could be a possible matchup in the playoffs come this season, but I just think the 49ers get the Saints again because of their defensive line.
You know, Shanley, I wish I had a stat handy for this, but it seems to me Sean Payton is almost at his best. When he loses a game to somebody in a situation, he tends to win that game a year later. Don't you see that kind of trend with him? Whether it's somebody you lose to on prime time, and I don't care where it is, he tends to win that game, or the team plays better the next time. Because you know how Payton is wired, like a lot of these coaches. He's even more so though about, man, I can't believe we lost that game. We should have won that game. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like he's always up for games, but even more so for games like that. A game last year that they should have won in a lot of ways.
Well, I think Coach Payton has he puts a chip on his own shoulder and he takes everything personal. Because you know what's going to happen the week of the 49ers game this year is he's going to hear ad nauseum about his 2-point conversion he went for early in the game, and that cost them to lose last year's game. So he takes everything personally, which makes him coach better and inspire his team better.
Speaking of that, I know we're going off the rails here a little bit, but Peyton very active on social media during COVID-19. I love that some Saints websites said that Sean Payton is slipping, and then he responded, "You tripping," basically, or something like that. I mean, are you surprised by Payton in any of this at all?
I am a little bit surprised, but I think quarantine is doing crazy things to people, and I think Coach Payton's loving his time on social media, and he does have a good personality like this that players get to see, and I'm glad that the fans and media get to see it as well.
He really does. He really does. I love seeing that stuff. It's very unusual from an NFL head coach, but it's funny. I'm going to go against the grain, guys. I think they win this game. There's something about, Sean Payton, as I mentioned, losing a game in 1 year and kind of bouncing back the next year. So, I have 2 losses. Shanley only has 1. Justin Thomas has 2 so far. Okay, we go into the 10th game of the season. Oh, Shanley's favorite game. The Atlanta Falcons come calling to the Superdome. Justin Thomas, what do you think? You got them on a 2-game losing streak. Do they bounce back?
Absolutely, they bounce back. I mean, every time the Saints play the Falcons, it's always tough, and it always seems like it's close scoring games. But I think the Saints bounce back, get the win, get some momentum.
Shanley, you know what I see for the Falcons lately because they've been so crazy since blowing that Super Bowl? Here's the phrase that always goes before the Falcons now. Carolina's going to be this. The Bucs are resurging because they have Brady. The Saints are the Saints. Oh, you never know what you're going to get from the Falcons. You never know what you're going to get. It's like that's all I hear. And really, it's kind of true, isn't it, in a lot of ways?
They are the model of inconsistency. 1 year they'll go to the Super Bowl and blow a 28-3 lead. The next year they won't make the playoffs, and that's just their franchise. And who knows if Dan Quinn will be the head coach by the time that the Saints and Falcons even play this game. The thing I noticed about the schedule is this tells you everything you need to know what the league thinks of this rivalry. They moved this game to a noon game, which the Saints don't have many noon games. It's not a Thursday night game. It's not a Monday night game. It's not a Sunday night game. The league is tired of seeing the Saints beat up on the Falcons. They moved it to a noon game. Let's get this thing out of the way. I don't see the Falcons beating the Saints at home.
I'm writing all these down in pen. I wrote down W before Shanley started talking about the Atlanta Falcons. So Shanley hasn't beaten the Atlanta Falcons. That's a good point about how this rivalry has fallen. I mean, they could have in the old years. They may have put that Chargers Monday night game. That might have been a Falcon, Monday night. That could have been a Falcons game back in the old days, Shanley.
Yeah, I agree. But with the Falcons, it remains to be seen. They signed Todd Gurley. Is his knee still messed up? They added some pieces, but Matt Ryan continues to get older. Nobody really talks about Matt Ryan getting older. Everybody talks about these other quarterbacks getting older and how it's going to affect their franchise. There were whispers of the Atlanta Falcons moving up in the top 10 to try to get after a quarterback in the draft. So it remains to be seen how much change they have in their offensive personality with Matt Ryan too.
Yeah, I agree. I think they win this game. The Saints win and trudge on to an interesting matchup the next week. This is the only team that Sean Payton and Drew Brees together have not beaten in the NFL. How about that stat? And I knew that because Brees said that Payton had texted him that when he was contemplating retirement. Yeah, the only team that Brees and Payton haven't beaten together, your Denver Broncos on the road in late November. Justin Thomas, what do you think?
This one's tough for me. Denver, playing in Denver is super tough. It's one of the loudest stadiums. At the time of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if, it's super cold and maybe even snowing. I think this team is intriguing due to all the offensive weapons they got in the draft. But again, QB to me is a question mark. I think the Saints, Drew Brees, Sean Payton finally get their win together against the Broncos.
All
I
right.
pick the Saints winning.
All right, after a 2-game losing streak, you have a 2-game winning streak. Shanle, you still have this team only with one loss this season. How do they do in Denver?
This is one of those games where, as a player, I'm thinking, do I need to bring a stocking hat and a parka, wool coat? I mean, do I need snow boots? What's it going to be like in Denver in late November? That's always tricky. But outside of that, name me 5 starters on the Denver Broncos team.
Yeah, it's true.
Besides, they drafted Jerry Jeudy. He's the biggest high-profile guy on their team besides Von Miller. Chris Harris, the all-pro corner, is now a Charger. They lost a ton of guys. I just don't see the Denver Broncos being able to beat the Saints.
Well, the week of the podcast when they play Denver, we'll do that. Name 5 Broncos. We can't study the Broncos from now until then. That's a pretty good game. I feel this game is going to be a defensive game. I think the defense really plays well in this game. You got the young quarterback. I think you got the Saints defense feeling good about themselves. A couple key turnovers. It's going to be a tough game, but I think the Saints win this game as well. We all have them beating the Denver Broncos. Okay, this will be another fun one. For the second time in 3 weeks, they play the Atlanta Falcons this time. They go to the ATL. Justin Thomas, do they beat the Atlanta Falcons twice in 3 weeks?
Well, like I said earlier, it seems like every time they play each other, this game goes down to the wire. It's always close. I hate to say it, but I see this being a loss for the Saints.
Wow. Okay. What do you think, Shanle? I can't write this one. I'm not sure what you're going to say about this one.
Oh, I'm going with a win. I don't know what the league is doing with this. Didn't they do this the last couple of years? They put the Saints and the Falcons within 2 weeks of each other, and I know the Falcons play the Buccaneers within 2 weeks of each other as well. So I don't know what the league's doing as far as making the NFC South opponents play the Falcons that close. But I think the Saints win. I just don't trust Todd Gurley's knee. Like I said, Matt Ryan's getting older. Julio Jones is getting older, and I just don't see that team being on the Saints level.
Well, maybe they schedule it that way because they perceive this rivalry the same way you do. And, I don't know. I mean, to me, all the primetime games you give the Saints, I'll say it again, they're not playing the Falcons in any of them. And how many primetime games have we seen with the Falcons, whether it's Thanksgiving, Monday Night Football? I mean, we've seen a ton of them in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. I say win in this game as well. All right, we're getting down to the crunch time here. Let's see, we're moving to kind of mid-December here. The third road game in a row, by the way, at Philly against the Eagles. Justin Thomas, what do you think?
Once again, this is another tough place to play. It's going to be up north. I'm sure it's going to be really cold. This is a really good team, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe Carson Wentz has ever played a full season.
No.
I think the Eagles acknowledged that by drafting Jalen Hurts. So I wouldn't be surprised if Carson is already injured and out. I think the environment's tough, but I think the Saints pull it off and get a win after their loss to the Falcons.
Interesting. Okay. Justin Thomas has a win. What do you think, Shanle?
Yeah, again, I kind of hedge my bets here with what I think the Saints are going to be at by the end of the year in terms of win-loss. And just with the way the schedule breaks down, this is the 5th road game in the last 7 weeks, I believe, at Philly. and it could be cold. And I just think at that point, the team's starting to get tired from all the road games being away. They're going to find a way to trip up on one of these away games. And I think Philadelphia at that point in the season gives them the best chance. So I'm going to go Philadelphia winning a close one.
Yeah, I didn't see a clean sweep of these 3 straight games on the road, and yet you have 5 in 7 weeks. I have a loss here too. I almost picked a loss with the Denver Broncos, but that's the first game. But Shanley, how about this? If we turn it the other way, if you win 3 straight games on the road and then you head home, I mean, how much of a confidence boost would that be for this football team? Even though it's a veteran football team,
No question.
does that matter? I mean, is that a big deal?
No, I just think every win is extra special. But I know after you play that many away games, being away for 5 weeks out of the previous 7 and then getting to go home, there's always a revived energy of playing in front of your fan base because it's been so long since you've been able to do that.
Yeah. All right. So Shanley and I both have a loss. I have 3 losses so far this season. Shanley only has 2. Justin has 3 as well. We head down the stretch run, the final 3 games of the year, and in what should be a primetime game. You wonder if they'll flex this game. I don't know how that works with CBS. Sometimes I always forget these rules. But the Chiefs coming to the Superdome. Mahomes against Breeze. Late afternoon, nationally televised game. What do you think, Justin Thomas?
This is going to be an awesome game. You got 2 offensive geniuses going to battle. You got 2 great QBs. I just think the Chiefs, being the Super Bowl winners, have, until something happens, they're going to be the best team. And so I think it'll be a fun game, probably an offensive shootout, but I have the Chiefs winning this one.
All right. Scott Shanley, I have no idea what you're going to say about this game. So go ahead.
I'm going with the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a 41-38 type game. 2 offensive geniuses, like Justin said. Just they're going to find the matchups they want all over the field. There's going to be a lot of points scored. I like the fact I think the Chiefs play the Dolphins the week before that, so it's not a tremendous amount of stress on their team. They have a lot of team speed. I just think the Chiefs find a way to get a tough road win.
How about Shanley knowing who the Chiefs are going to play the week before? That's going next level in this podcast schedule special right here. You know, I so want to go against the grain with you guys. I really do. But boy, this is a tough game in so many ways. I think the Chiefs are a better football team and they were the best last year. But you know what? I am going to go against the grain. I am. I'm going to trust my gut. I think there's something about this. This game has Sean Payton and his schemes written all over it. I think they're going to get up for this game. I just hope Drew Brees is healthy. I don't know where he's going to be at this point in the year. But I have something about Sean Payton. This is just the Sean Payton signature type game. I think the Saints win this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Boy, then it gets interesting. You have the short week. It's Christmas. You got the Vikings coming in again, the team that ended the Saints season a year ago in the playoffs. Is it going to be a Merry Christmas for the Saints, Justin?
Yeah, that short week is really tough. This, I think this goes back to what you were saying earlier. I think sometimes certain games, when Sean Payton loses in a previous year, he finds a way to win the following matchup. And I think the way the Saints went out in that playoff game, I have this as a win for the Saints. They're going to right the ship right before the end of the season. It's going to be a big win. I got Saints.
Okay. Shanley, I can't wait to see you on Christmas. I don't know what your schedule is going to be. I hope it doesn't affect your family too much, but how's it going to be with the Saints?
The only thing worse than playing on Christmas is playing away on Christmas, and I think that's going to affect Minnesota. And I agree with Justin. The Saints are going to have this game circled.
Wow.
The way they played in that wild card game last year was shocking to everybody. They haven't been able to let it go, I'm sure, because they were a Super Bowl caliber team. They will be ready to play the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day and get that W.
All right. Well, speaking of W's, I say it's a W too. I think it's a Sean Payton game, man. He loses these games and then has the opportunity to redeem himself a year later. I got to look up the stat on that, but I've just seen it time and time again in the Peyton Breeze era of this happening and ending up pretty well for the New Orleans Saints. I say a win. All right, last game of the year. And by our predictions right now, I mean, Justin Thomas has 4 losses for the Saints. Shanley has 3. I have 3. If that's the case, could it be Jameis Winston against the Carolina Panthers, against Teddy Bridgewater maybe? But what do you think about this last game against Carolina, Justin?
I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm trying to think of in the NFC who else would be at the top. and I could see if things go as planned that yeah we're playing our backups that week, but I think no matter what, the Saints are a better team if even if they are playing backups. I think Saints win.
All right. You have a win. What do you think, Shanle?
This one is tricky because of all the things you guys have thrown out there. Do the Saints rest? Because remember now, there's no bye week for the 2 seed. So you have to have the number 1 seed to get a bye. So you could be forced to play starters in week 17. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater and these other guys have contract incentives and they're still playing hard on the road. I'm going to go with the Saints because my gut's telling me that that's the obvious choice. But there's so many unknowns when you go into the week 17 of the NFL season and how the playoff structure, who's playing who's sitting who. But I just got to go with the Saints or the Panthers.
It's funny. Speaking of contract incentives, our guy Jameis has some contract incentives. Maybe he could meet them that week as well. I was thinking the Saints are a 12-4 team, and this is dangerous picking it week by week because there's so many unknowns. We don't know who's going to go down. Somebody's going to go down during the season. A lot of people are going to go down. You know how healthy they are. I'm like Shanle in a lot of ways. I have a number. I think they lose this game because Drew Brees didn't plan. Jameis hadn't played all year. I just think they lose this game because of the depth chart and a lot of guys sitting, getting rested for the playoffs. So I think they lose this game. So I think they're 12-4. I'm doing the easy math. Shanle says 13-3. Justin says 12-4. Justin, how do you feel about 12-4?
I think that's good. You know, my one concern is Breeze. I obviously think he still has the talent, but he's definitely regressing, and one injury could make a huge difference. I think he's the one major factor whether or not they go 12-4 or less. But I'm comfortable with that number.
Shanle, was 13-3 your number, or did that just kind of play out that way?
No, 13-3 was my number, and I'm with you, Mike. I think 12-4 conservative, 13-3 is my expectation, and I think 14-2 is doable with what this team has coming back and the way the schedule shapes up and the pandemic we've faced with no offseason for a lot of these opponents are going to face. But no, I think the thing that people need to start to think about more is this playoff structure, adding another wild card team, only one team getting a bye. I mean, it is a huge change. This Saints team needs to get the best record. They need that number 1 seed. You don't want to play that extra playoff game. Make everybody go through the dome. And when you start to think about divisions, the NFC East is going to be horrible. So the best team in that division is probably the Cowboys. They're going to have an easier time in their division. What's their record going to be? What's their win-loss record going to be? I think the NFC North, I don't see Green Bay going 13-3 again. No standout team there. And then the NFC West, the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams are all going to beat up on each other. So nobody ends up with a 13-3 or a 13-3 or a 12-4 record, hopefully, and the Saints get that number 1 seed.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel comfortable with 12-4. It's just so hard to do this. It's we see surprise teams in the NFL every year, and that's why the NFL is the best league because you can make that jump from one year to another. It's not like Major League Baseball where you have the salary being such a determinant on wins and losses. The NBA the same thing, and really the NHL in a lot of ways. So this is a dangerous game we're playing, but I think if it works out this way, the Saints will be in great shape in terms of being a number 1 seed and moving forward. So. With that said, Justin, we're going to keep you on the show here. We're going to keep it rolling. You know what time it is. Shanle just did a good job of breaking down things, and it's such a watered down AFC now. I mean, the power really is in the NFC with so many great teams, but they do have the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are the champs, and they beat the Niners, who are the best team in the NFC, so that's what makes the NFL great. But I remember this time last year that Baker Mayfield was on the cover of everything, and they got Odell Beckham, and Cleveland was the darling. The schedule comes out, so we have darlings now. We have off-season darlings. Who's more likely to be this year's Cleveland Browns? Okay, is it the Bucks? Is it the Cowboys? Or is it the Texans? Because the Texans were a playoff team last year, but they lost their main receiver, so there's going to be a drop-off there. But all three of those teams, especially the Bucks, are getting a lot of hype. So out of those three, you can go off the board if you want. Who are this year's Cleveland Browns more likely?
Well, I said, I believe it was last year, that the Cowboys, the only reason they failed in the playoffs was because of the coach. I think the coach was holding them back. They got a new coach. Cowboys are a really good team, so I don't think it's them. Bucks, I see why they could be the Cleveland Browns this year, but they were on the upswing last year. Their defense was vastly improved towards the end. I think Brady's going to make a huge difference. I think the Texans, I don't know what's going on with Bill O'Brien and the decisions he's making. I would be surprised if the Texans fail horribly this year. I'm going to go with them as the 2020 Cleveland Browns.
2020 Cleveland Browns. Shanle, you break down the NFL like no other. You could go off the board if you want, but who are this year's Cleveland Browns more likely? The Bucks, the Texans, or the Cowboys?
Well, I do agree with the Texans, but I'm going to change my answer because of the expectations in Tampa Bay. I think if Tampa Bay goes 9-7, everyone's hugely disappointed, and I think they have the potential to go 9-7. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, just like Cleveland last year. All these expectations, all over the cover of everything, the talk of the offseason. Nobody's really doing that with the Texans, so I don't know how much underachieving they can do. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay because the expectations are way too high.
You know what? The thing about the Bucks is star power seems to kind of cure all sometimes with fan bases. They get excited about buying the jerseys. For a fan base that hasn't had much to get excited about since they won the Super Bowl back in 2002. That's the last time they won a playoff game, amazingly enough, was 18 years ago. And then they got the Super Bowl this year. They're hosting it. So they're thinking, man, maybe we could be the first franchise ever to play a Super Bowl in our hometown. Calm down, Bucks fans. Here's the thing. Their offensive line is not very good. It's not. They don't have a running game, guys. They didn't draft a guy that can really compete with Ronald Jones, their former second round pick, who's had one good year in the NFL, but he's not an every down back. He can't block. So that's two big minuses for their offense. That's why the Saints are still considered by many to win the NFC South. So I say, yeah, I think they'll have a better season. They may make the playoffs, but Shanley makes a great point. Will they be a Super Bowl team? I don't see that coming. But will they be as bad as the Browns last year? I don't see that either, probably somewhere in the middle. So I would say out of those three games, three teams, I would pick the Bucks. Okay.
I was just going to say, Mike, if you're listening to this and you have a chance, go check out the Buccaneers schedule. You can't tell me the league is not rooting for Tampa Bay to be really good and loving the Tom Brady hype, because every tough team, perceived tough team, goes to Tampa Bay. They didn't send Tampa Bay on the road against one tough team. I mean, New Orleans is tough. They have to go on the road there.
Mm-hmm.
But they get Minnesota at home. They get the Chiefs at home. They get the Rams at home. They get the Packers at home. So the league wants to see Tampa Bay do well.
Well, the Saints got those teams at home.
I was going to say, Saints got those teams as well at home, outside of the Rams.
He's a Bucks hater. Shanley's a Bucks hater.
They're doing it for their boy Tom Brady. They want to see the Buccaneers go 13-3. It's good. It's good storylines, and it's good for ratings.
Maybe I should have done more likely. This is the better more likely. You brought up a great more likely out of the blue. I'm going to scratch one of these. Maybe we do four. More likely, who does Goodell hate more, Brady or Peyton?
Man, I don't know. I've always been a little endearing towards Patriots fans because of their dislike for Goodell. And I think Saints and Patriots fans need to have, like, someday, 2 or 3 years from now, some big carnival cruise where we all celebrate the hate for Goodell.
I love it.
But I don't know. I don't know, because Goodell's done more. Not more. I mean, he's done a lot of things to both Saints and the Patriots. Maybe Goodell's the one who called Tom Brady on being in the park in Tampa.
Maybe, yeah. That's the kind of chemistry we have in this podcast, though, that you always correct my questions, and you make them better, and now you create a whole new category. I don't know. We got to think about that one. That'd be a good poll question on our Twitter handle. I think he would probably, to suspend Sean Payton for the whole year for Bountygate, to me, would be Peyton would be my answer. But boy, the Deflategate stuff was nonsense too. That was just, you know what? Goodell's just nonsense. So it's all nonsense. But I think I would say Peyton more than Brady. Shanley, I would.
Oh, I would too. With getting suspended a whole year, what he missed out on, like $8 or $9 million, completely affected the 2012 season for the Saints. I mean, it was unprecedented.
We may bring that back when the Saints play the Patriots. We may have to think about that all summer, or the Bucks. I said Patriots. All right. So the big thing now is Zoom. Everybody's Zooming each other, and apparently Zoom was around before the quarantine and COVID-19 and everything. But that's the highest stock in the country is Zoom stock. If you could Zoom anybody on the Saints, and you could go off the board here. If you could do an individual Zoom and have your own interview and ask them whatever you wanted, would it be Sean Payton? Would it be Breeze? Or would you go off the board? And it has to be somebody
Uh,
on the team right now.
okay, that I was going to ask if it has to be a current player. There's a lot of great personalities. I can tell you right now, if Mark Ingram was on the team, he would be it, no doubt. But unfortunately, he's not. I probably will go with another great personality and a player I've always really loved, and that's Cam Jordan. I think he would be fun to talk to for a while.
Yeah, he would be. What do you think, Shanley? If you could Zoom one person on the Saints.
Yeah, Cam is a great choice because there would never be any awkward silence. There, he would always have something to talk about, and he would make it interesting. And there's a lot of different levels to Cam, which is great. He would definitely be one of my choices if I had a multiple choice. But I think I would go with Coach Payton, and I would go with Coach Payton because we've seen this new, improved Twitter Coach Payton, and he's fun loving. And I would jab him about all sorts of things that happened as a player when he was more of a tyrant, I would say, to our guys than he is now. Now he's this fun-loving, dancing in the locker room coach that we didn't get to see. So I think I would poke at him a lot with questions.
Well, I would pick Peyton too, but I would say, listen, Coach, with all due respect, if we're going to Zoom together, you have to be Twitter Sean, not press conference Sean. Okay, that's got to be the rule. All right. And so, Coach, if you're listening, we definitely want Twitter Sean on the podcast, and we'll take Twitter Sean as long as we can. We're not tripping, and you're not flipping. We'll have you on. We would love to have you on. So I would take Sean Payton, but it has to be Twitter Sean Payton. All right, my last one here. I saw this on ESPN. A lot of people rip ESPN. I think they get too much criticism. It's like the Patriots. They're the top dog, so everybody's going to criticize them. I love The Last Dance. They do a lot of good things, but it was kind of a weird anniversary. It wasn't like the 25th anniversary or the 20th. It was the 18th anniversary of the Allen Iverson practice rant. Practice, talking about practice and all that. I'm going to give you three choices. They had Iverson as the best rant, and they had all the best rants of the last probably 20 years. I'm going to give you three options here. You can go off the board if you want. Jim Mora, playoffs. You have Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. Or you have Mike Gundy, I'm a man, I'm 40. Or you could go off the board. There's some good ones off the board, but you have Jim Mora, playoffs, play to win the game, Herm Edwards. Or you have Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State, hey, coach, I'm a man, I'm 40, which actually helped his recruiting a great deal, and is probably a big reason he's there, which is the ironic part of that rant. A lot of guys get fired for rants, like Denny Green and Herm Edwards. That didn't help him. That actually helped Mike Gundy. But anyway, so what do you think of those three?
I'm trying to think of some other really good rants. Wasn't what was it Cromell who did the rant? You play to win the game, or was that Herm Edwards?
That was Herm Edwards, but you had Denny Green is like they are who we thought they were. One of my
that's
favorites.
who it was. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah, we are who they thought we were.
Yeah.
It's tough. I really love the Allen Iverson rant. That was a great one. I think though the Mike Gundy one, I remember when that happened and him going off on a reporter, wasn't it? Right? Wasn't a reporter?
Newspaper reporter, yeah.
Yeah, you don't see that too often, and that kind of passion, I guess you would say. And you're right. I mean, it kind of put him on the map. I think I enjoyed that one the most, so I'll go with Mike Gundy.
Every time I see somebody turn 40 on like social media, like they'll say, "I'm a man now," or Mike Gundy. And I met Mike Gundy, did a story on that a long time ago, and he was great about it. He embraced it and gave me all the insight about recruiting, how parents said, "Boy, you stuck up for my player. I love that." And when I first saw it, I'm like, man, this guy's going to get fired. What's going to happen with this guy? But it actually turned around and was a positive. So, Shanley, you have a favorite rant of all time?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Coach Mora. I think Coach Mora's will live on forever because every year you have playoffs come up. Every year you have teams that are being discussed, who's going to make it, who isn't. And when you think about great rants, all you got to do is think about like most used memes when people respond or via text or what kind of shows up the most. Like one word, when you hear playoffs, what do you think? You think of Coach Mora's voice saying playoffs. I know he hates it, and I know I know he gets tired of it, but he will live on in infamy because of it.
Well, this is how bad the Saints franchise was, guys, because we hear the playoffs thing, but he had so much. He had better rants as a Saints head coach. I mean, diddly poo, and that was better than playoffs, I thought. But he says he hates it, and I love Jim Moore. He's great, and he does a lot of local stuff in New Orleans. So we're always doing live shots next to each other, and you hear guys yell playoffs in the stands, and he'll kind of wave to him, whatever. And he told me that the hardest thing is that his grandkids are getting old enough now where they're like, "Granddad, was that you?" And they'll replay like clips on YouTube of him doing playoffs. And then he said he really didn't like it. But then I drove into New Orleans one time, and I guess, you never know. He was doing a voiceover for a pest control company in New Orleans, and he was like, "Termites, termites," and they patterned that whole commercial. So, we're going to bring the Aaron's franchise back when the pandemic ends, and Jim Moore has already agreed for an episode of Aaron's. So we're going to get the backstory on a lot of that stuff. But yeah, Jim Moore is a one of a kind, and that would be my favorite as well. But he had so many better rants as a Saints head coach. So, all right, we're going to have a fun poll. Shanle said 13-3. Justin and I said 12-4. We're going to throw some records out there, get some responses from you Saints fans. What's the Twitter handle, Justin?
At Done That Podcast.
At Done That Podcast. We're available on all the platforms that you can hear podcasts on: Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Google. So subscribe, give us feedback. If you like us, please rate us highly. And we appreciate all your support. And that was a lot of fun, kind of going round and round with the schedule here. We'll see if we start on time in the NFL. We'll see what happens. But we're going to schedule some good interviews in the coming months. If anything breaks with the Saints, we'll definitely give you the reaction on it. So thanks for taking the time, especially if you've gone this far into the podcast. We appreciate it, Who Dat Nation, and you NFL fans who have subscribed. And we'll talk to you next time. For Justin Thomas and my partner, Scott Shanle, I'm merely Mike Nabors, and we'll see you next time.